encounter with Jesus strips away our pretensions. One of my favorite book series is a fantasy series called The Inheritance Cycle. Don't look for the movie. The one movie they made wasn't any good. It's a bad reflection on the books. I'm just saying. The Inheritance Cycle. And what's great about The Inheritance Cycle is that it's full of magic. Magic and mystery and dragons and elves and dwarfs and Urgles. You know what an Urgle is, do you? You should read The Inheritance Cycle. And humans. But magic is a big part of this fantasy world. And to be able to use magic, you have to know the words of the ancient language. And the words in the ancient language are the essence of everything. So, for example, if you wanted to do something magically with fire, you would need to know the ancient language word for fire, because the word, which, if you're wondering, is Brissinger, the word is the essence of the thing. And so if you know the true essence of a thing, then you can truly understand and control the thing. And because the words of the ancient language are the true essence of whatever you say, anyone speaking in the ancient language can only speak the truth. There are no lies that can be told in the ancient language. Now, just as things have words associated with them in the ancient language, that is the essence of the thing, so do people. Just as we each have our own individual names, in this world of the inheritance cycle, everyone has a true name. And everyone's true name is different from everyone else's. And that true name is your true name in the ancient language because it truly describes who you are completely. This is a big part of the storyline in this book series. You see, not everyone wants to know their true name. Because to know your true name means that you can no longer ignore those parts of your life that you wish to ignore. And if someone else knows your true name, because they then know everything about you, they can have control over you. So in this series, some people decide to never try to find out their true name. Some people try to find out their true name and cannot figure it out. And those who do discover their true name guard it as one of their deepest, darkest, and closest secrets. So imagine what that's like for a minute. This true name describes all of your layers. Now, there are lots of things that I've done that I'm proud of, okay? And I'm sure all of us have done some things that we are proud of. And we'd probably like to share those things every once in a while. Even if we have to wait to be encouraged to share it from other people. No, I won't tell that story. Okay, fine, I'll tell that story. There are things that we're proud of, that we're happy to share. But what about those things we're not proud of? What about those things that we have done that we try to forget? What about those things that we've done that we knew we shouldn't have done, and yet we did them anyway? How eager are we to share those things about our lives? That's what it means when you share your true name. That true name describes all of your good accomplishments, all of your failures, all of your heroic actions, all of your shameful deeds. It's not always an easy thing to know or figure out. In the world of Fantasia, I'm jumping over to a different fantasy series now. In the world of Fantasia, Atreyu has to save Fantasia. And to save Fantasia, he finds out he has to go to the Southern Oracle. And the Southern Oracle will tell him how to save Fantasia. And there are two gates, two tests that you have to get through to get to the Southern Oracle. And he gets through the first one just fine. And when he does, Ingiwook, the gnome who has been studying the Southern Oracle his entire life, says, the worst one is coming up. Next is the Magic Mirror Gate. Atreyu has to look at his true self in the face. So what? Says Falcor, the luck dragon. That won't be too hard for him. Ingiwook. Oh, that's what everyone thinks. But kind people find out that they are cruel. Brave men discover they are really cowards. Confronted with their true selves, most men run away screaming. like it or not, an encounter with Jesus strips away all of our pretensions. You know, we have been going through the Gospel of John for this entire year, and if you think back over the stories we have experienced together, you will see examples of that happening again and again in the Gospel of John. People have an encounter with Jesus, and all of their pretensions have been stripped away. Jesus knows their true self, and then they have a decision to make. How are they going to behave in response to that encounter? One of the first ones we talked about, which is one of my favorites, is when Jesus encounters the Samaritan woman at the well. Do y'all remember this? Thank you for some of you remember. That's good. 4, 5, 6. Good. More and more. Excellent. So Jesus encounters the Samaritan woman at the well. And the Samaritan woman says to her friends, "He has told me everything about myself." Jesus knows everything about her. And she goes back to the village. And she gets all of her friends to come and see the man who she says to them, he couldn't be the Messiah, could he? And he stays there with them for a few days. Jesus saw the truth about this woman. And she told all of her friends and brought them all to a belief in Jesus as the Messiah. In that same chapter, his next encounter is with a guy named Nicodemus. Nicodemus comes to Jesus by night as though he's embarrassed to come to him by day. He comes to Jesus by night, and Jesus talks to him about being born of the Spirit, being born of the water, being born from above. And Nicodemus is confused by all of this. And Jesus says to him, "Are you a teacher of the law of Israel and do not know these things?" Jesus nails it on the head. He's supposed to know these things. Nicodemus knows now that he's supposed to know these things, but instead he is confused by these things. And as Jesus continues to talk about these things, Nicodemus just sort of drifts away. 2 encounters with Jesus. 2 people whom Jesus looks to the heart of and tells them about who they are. 2 entirely different responses. 1, he is the Messiah. 2, just silently drifting away. An encounter with Jesus not only strips away all of our pretensions, but then we have to decide what we do next. Today's text is the same. Jesus has 2 significant encounters, and pretensions are stripped away, and people have to decide what they are going to do next. The first encounter that he has is with Pilate. Now, we talked a lot about Pilate last week, about Pontius Pilate, the governor of the area, the Roman, I'm going to say it right this time, procurator of the area, the one who is in charge, so to speak. Not only did we talk about Pilate last week, we talk about Pilate every week. Did you know that? We affirm our faith every week with the words of the Apostles' Creed. And there are only 2 humans we talk about in there besides Jesus. And in reference to Jesus, we talk about Jesus being born of the Virgin Mary and suffering under Pontius Pilate. And did he suffer? It says that he was flogged. In the translation that Andy read. That flogging is also called scourging. Flogging is not just being beaten with a leather strap. That's bad enough. Flogging or scourging is being beaten with something like a cat of 9 tails. These long leather strips. And tied to the ends of these strips are bits of metal and bone, so that when the person was beaten, it didn't just leave whelps. It opened the skin and the flesh. It was such a severe form of punishment and torture that sometimes that was all people got, because either they felt like they had suffered enough or they died from it. But in this case, it just seems to soften Jesus up for what's about to come. And what comes is humiliation. What comes is embarrassment and more torture before the ultimate torture in the crucifixion. In the midst of this interrogation, in the midst of this torture, in the midst of this humiliation and abuse, Pilate says to him, I have power over you. I have power over you to crucify or to release you. And then, when he puts him up before the people, and the people tell him about Jesus claiming to be the Son of God, the text tells us that Pilate was even more afraid than ever. Because if someone claims to be the Son of God, that means they are claiming to be equal with the emperor. You see, the Roman emperor at that time also went by the phrase, the Son of God. And if Pilate let that guy slide, he was letting treason slide. He says, I have power to crucify you or release you. And Jesus says, the only power you have over me is that which has been given to you from above. In other words, Pilate's power isn't real power. You see, we often try to let Pilate off the hook. Like he just crucifies Jesus because he does that to make the crowd happy. It's really the crowd's fault that Pilate crucified Jesus. That he didn't really want to crucify Jesus. Well, if he had the power to crucify or release him, if he didn't want to crucify him, he didn't have to crucify him. He's not running for re-election. This is not a democracy. He is the representative of the empire and can do whatever he wants. But in that moment, he decides to crucify Jesus. His power is not real power. And the crowd's reality is revealed in that interaction with Jesus as well. When the crowds say, crucify him, we have no king but the emperor, a couple of things happen. One, they are using fear to bait Pilate. It is the fear that drives Pilate to choose to crucify Jesus instead of release him. Fear that the emperor will find out. Fear that he'll lose his position, his presumption of power. And then also, they say, we have no king but the emperor. These are not Roman citizens. These are Jews. These are the people of God, the children of Yahweh. They have one king, and that is the Lord our God. But here they say they have only the emperor as king. Confronted by Jesus, interacting with Jesus, in the presence of Jesus, their pretensions are stripped away. Their true selves are shown. And it's ugly. It is flawed. It is bad. And in truth, we're all flawed. We're all ugly. None of us are perfect. This world is flawed. This world is ugly. But in truth, it is this flawed, ugly, and broken world that Jesus came to suffer and die for. In Jesus, by Jesus, through Jesus, our true selves are realized and intimately known, and still Jesus chooses to suffer and die for us. At one point, Pilate says to the people, "Here is the man." That is true. Jesus, the man who knows more suffering and punishment than most of us can imagine. Jesus, the man who can suffer with us in our suffering and in our punishment. Jesus, the man who knows us when we inflict suffering, when we inflict punishment, and still in our flawed and broken state. Jesus, who knows us completely, chose to come and suffer and die for us. Whether we like it or not, Jesus knows all of our layers. And yet still, he chooses to suffer